Yeah, it was funny with the Geo Metro is like, I found some random like company that made air suspension and they had Geo Metro listed. I was like, okay, like,
So what'd you do?
I guess
Just
I'll
cut
try. My name is Greg Mathews. So I grew up was born in Bellevue, Washington, moved down to Folsom in like 6th grade, lived there and then went to school in San Jose and then moved down to the Bay Area and basically lived here since then. I got into cars, 16 is when I first got into cars, buying my first car. And originally I got into, my first car was a Geo Metro. So I was very into like hypermiling, so getting the best gas mileage at the time. So Geo Metros got like 50 miles to the gallon and they were super cheap. And so
You like shut it off going down hills and stuff.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like bump started to get it, back going and stuff like that. So got into cars that way. And then I've always liked tinkering with stuff and like, I don't know, making things. And so, and it was just cheaper to do your own work on your car. And so, yeah, I did like a few things like, just like replace brakes and then got into doing some like silly mods on it with like a horn that could like play like the Batman theme. It was like a black Geo Metro and the roof was all like clear coat was peeling and stuff like that. It was like $800. And I wasn't into Batman that much, but it was already black. So I painted like a massive like yellow Batman like logo on the roof.
You mean, yes, Robin, the Metro.
And then got the like custom horn and like it had a little piano on it and like played the Batman theme song. And so like had that as like the horn and stuff like that. And so silly little mods like that for my first car.
So it was riced out.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get into like exhaust and like stuff like that yet, but just like stupid little things. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got into cars. And then I had another Geo Metro after that. So I sold that one when I went to college, got another Geo Metro in college because, again, they're cheap and good gas mileage. And then a little after college, my sister had this boyfriend who was really into cars. And so he had S14. And then he was like, oh, have you like heard about drifting? And I was like, oh, not, a little bit, don't really know what it is or whatever. And then we went out to Sonoma Drift and saw it. And then I was like, oh, this is awesome. I got to do this. So then I bought an S14 and like got into drifting that way. So
So going down the rabbit hole.
Yes, yeah. And then haven't left since. I've always kind of liked to do little like side businesses or like hobbies and things like that. So and then my background for work is more in like, I went to school for software engineering. So I have like some tech background and then I've worked in like startups and stuff like that. Now I'm doing all like web design, product design kind of work. Yeah, I've always kind of like tinkered with things on the side. And so earlier on with the S14 that I had, I built like a digital dash for it with a Raspberry Pi. And so that was kind of fun because it like hooked up to the Nissan consult port because it was like pre-OBD2. And then I got it reading like speed, RPMs, and things like that on like a touchscreen, which was pretty cool. So that was kind of like my first foray into like, I don't know, gauges or like electronics with cars. And then tried a bunch of different things. After that, I was like, I don't know, cutting some stickers and a bunch of random other things. Had a YouTube channel and like fixing up my car and stuff. And then I got started with making Croc charms. And so that was, I don't know, it was like went on vacation to Hawaii and needed some shoes that weren't like, regular shoes. And so picked up some Crocs, and then all the Croc charms they had in the store were like pretty lame. There wasn't anything cool. So I was like, I'll like figure out if I can make my own Croc charms. And so started that, and I was in the drift scene. Crocs were kind of like getting popular in the drift scene as well. So I was like, partnered with a few like local people to like do their cars and try and just make something that was like a little more fun than like whatever Crocs had. And then after a while, I was selling them on like, my own site and Etsy. And then I got a cease and desist from Crocs, basically saying like, stop selling Croc charms because the little connector on the back of the Croc charm is like patented and proprietary and all this stuff. And so I ended up like emailing, I had to like guess a bunch of emails of people at the company. So I like looked up the CEO's name, the like head of legal, and like emailed all of them to like try and get in contact about still making Croc charms, because it seemed like weird that like, I don't know, I was like helping them grow their business basically by like making cool charms that then people would want to buy Crocs for. So I ended up getting into contact with some people at Crocs and tried to work some stuff out, and then it just kind of fizzled out. So I just kind of felt like, if they're not wanting to support kind of like these smaller brands creating stuff for their shoes, then it was just like not really worth like staying in. And so at the tail end of making Croc charms, I was making this one Croc charm that could play GIFs on it. And so you could attach to your shoe, upload GIFs to the charm, and then it would like play the GIF like constantly. And so then I basically took a break from like doing anything, was just kind of chilling, and then bought a new car, and I was needing a oil pressure gauge for it. And so I looked at what was on the market, and everything was like $200. And it was just like super old tech, and it just didn't really make sense for why it was so expensive.
So how much are you into making that gauge?
Yeah, a little more than that now, yeah. And so I like quickly put together a prototype of a gauge using the same technology that I was using for the gift playing Croc charm, and got something super quick put together. And so I was like, oh, this is like pretty feasible to make a gauge for oil pressure, a bunch of different things. And then just kind of continued to develop it from there.
So how long have you been working on the gauge now to get to where it is? I know it's been a while now.
Yeah. So I looked up, like, I bought the first parts for the first prototype in January 2023. So it's been almost 2 years at this point. So yeah, I'm trying to think, it probably took me, I think it took me maybe 6 months to get to the like first beta prototypes that I had. And then after that, I iterated on like the actual hardware and PCBs of it to make it smaller, and then opened up more beta versions there. And then about October 2023, the like social media started blowing up a little bit, and I was just getting like more people who wanted to buy the gauge than I could like actually make myself. And so then I started looking for a manufacturer that could help me like make them in like mass quantities, so that I didn't have to hand assemble every single one, and started that process in like October 2023. And then they like fully redesigned the electronics inside the gauge. We fully redesigned kind of like the case and added some additional features and things like that. And then we should be opening up, or I should be opening up pre-orders in the next week or two for that version. And so that'll be super cool, because now I'll be able to like make as many as anybody wants. Kind of like the main feature set is like, you can, my like main tagline for it, like main feature set for it, is that it's like the most customizable gauge. And so I really wanted to make something that you could like change the backgrounds of, make it look exactly how you wanted it to look, so you can like match your interior of your car or your just general style. So you can change like background colors, the color of the text. You can change it from like analog with like a needle, or just like a digital like number display. And then you can have up to 4 sensors attached to it. And then I'm adding the ability to do OBD2 and CAN bus as well to the like same gauge hardware. And so that's kind of like one kind of like, I think underrated or like unknown features, like the gauge, because it has like a Wi-Fi setup process. And so I'm going to be like constantly developing new features for it. And then all of the gauges that have been purchased through this, like the new production gauges, they'll constantly be updating with like all these new features. So when I add OBD2 support for like any of the gauges, you can just like pop the new software on it and then get the OBD2 adapter, plug it into the gauge that you like already have, and now it like can work with OBD2. And so there's going to be like, I have plans for like a bunch of different like accessories or like kind of things like that you can add on later on, and it's just like a quick software update to like then be able to get it. The other thing that some people kind of get a kick out of, for a while I took like a break from drifting, and then I bought a Geo Metro and put it on air suspension, and then like got back into drifting. So that's kind of like an interesting story too. Yeah, it was funny with the Geo Metro is like, I found some random like company that made air suspension, and they had Geo Metro listed. I was like, okay, like I guess I'll try. I like emailed them because I was like, this seems sketchy. Like, how do you have, you know? But I think they just had dimensions for like, you know, pickup points or whatever. And so I ordered it, and they're like, yeah, you're like the only one that's ever ordered, you know, Geo Metro. And then I got it on, like the front struts were, it was like bag over strut, were like great. You could like lower it down super low. And then the rear stuff, it was like spring and strut or whatever. And then the bag is in place of the spring, but like it never got that low. Like I think even lowest, it was just like barely lower than stock. Well, what ended up happening was like the like adapters on the bag, I think was like creating too much height. And so I ended up like getting new control arms. Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so I ended up buying like, I mean, all the parts for Geo Metros are super cheap. So I bought like new control arms for the rear, and then bought like plates, adapter plates for the airbags, and then like had somebody, I was like so dumb. This is like, I didn't even have an angle grinder, and so I was using a Dremel to like cut the control arm. But I was just like, I didn't know, you know? And so like, I like made like 3 trips to Ace Hardware buying new little discs for the Dremel. I think I did end up buying an angle grinder after I bought like, had to go to Ace Hardware like 3 times. I think somebody was like, you should just get an angle grinder after I went there. And then I was like, okay.
Were you getting like Dremel bits?
Yeah. And they're expensive too. They're like 15. I was like, yeah, it's so dumb.
More money in Dremel bits.
Definitely. So, and I still like don't have a welder or anything. So I like took it to some random exhaust shop like near Lake Merritt in Oakland, and like had them weld like the plates to the control arms, and then that ended up getting it like super low. And so then I was like happy with and I didn't have like different wheels or anything for it. That's like the one thing I wish I did. I like painted the stock wheels, which are Steelies? Yeah, and they're 12-inch Steelies. That's what comes stock on the Geo Metro.
So you just made the car look worse.
I mean, honestly, I think it looks pretty good, but I wish I got some good wheels for it, you know. But that would have like really set it off. It's the same pattern as like the AE86 stuff, and so like there's plenty of awesome options. And then like to sell it, I ended up listing it on Bring a Trailer. And I got like 900 comments, and it sold for like, I think like $1,900 or something. And like, it was like super fun. I like didn't get anywhere near like, you know, what it cost. Like, I mean, the air management system alone was like $2,000 or something, you know? So I'm like, in the car I bought for like $2,000. I like bought it in LA because I thought it had like 90,000 miles on it. And then after I was so dumb. I like didn't pull a Carfax before I went down there and bought it. And then I pulled a Carfax later, and it had like been turned over like multiple times. But anyway, I sold it on Bring a Trailer. And then some dude like ended up buying it on the East Coast. So he like bought transport to it, like for it to the East Coast. And like, yeah, it was pretty funny. After that, I got kind of bored of, you know, slow car. The air suspension stuff was fun, and then got back into drifting. I kind of want another. There's the Japanese version. So there's like a Suzuki Swift, which is the same exact.
It's the same car.
But there's a Suzuki Swift GTI.
Why there's like any aftermarket support, probably just because of that.
Yeah, I think so. But there's a Suzuki Swift GTI that has a turbo on it, and it's like actually kind of fast. that would be cool to own. But then there's like the Japanese model, which is the Suzuki Cultus. And there's kind of like, there's people who were turn those into Geo Metros as like a USDM thing in Japan. So for a while, I was like following a couple of people who were doing that. And like, I kind of want to get one of those that, and like import it. But I don't know, one day.
That's crazy.
It would be so dumb.